Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time earlier today. OK, so let's address the elephant in the room early doors, which is you were met with a wall of silence there. What do you make of that, then?
Well, I went there with a genuine intention to learn, listen and discuss in a respectful and rational way. I appreciate this is a really emotive subject. People have strongly held views. My views are very well known. I believe in Israel's right to defend itself after the massacre of October the 7th, led by Hamas. They're a brutal death cult, and Israel must do whatever it needs to do militarily to eliminate Hamas and secure the security of its people. And I went there, and what we were met with is, as your footage shows, a wall of silence. And, you know, slightly surprising, really. I kind of thought, you know, these are going to be erudite, you know, confident students, informed, knowledgeable. They're all quite passionate. They've taken a stance to camp out in the rain and make a point. I thought that they would at least answer some basic questions. They refused or were unable to do so. I can only conclude they don't have robust arguments, or they didn't feel confident about actually entering into a dialogue.
Well, one thing that was quite interesting was, as I was on the train on the way back from this, I started to get a couple of direct messages on Twitter from people who were at that encampment, who were saying, actually, we maybe would quite like to engage with you. So what we've done is, probably in about 5 minutes' time, we've got somebody on who's going to come in and have that discussion with you, and have that kind of discussion that you were hoping to have with them earlier on today. So we'll park that there for now. I'd like to talk to you a bit about some of the points that we made towards the back end of that. One thing that is going to be a massive point of contention in the coming weeks is Israel's continued invasion into Rafah. That is going to be a massive issue. We're going to see an increased presence out on the streets, and a lot of people might decide to join more of these encampments as a result of what they might see on social media as a result of that. How would you respond to that strength of feeling that Israel should stop now?
I disagree with that. Listen, Israel is a sovereign state. It's a democratically elected state, and they have an armed forces, one of the actually most professional and expert armed military forces in the world, actually. I recently went to Israel. I met with senior Israeli Defense Force personnel, political figures, survivors of the massacre, you know, parents who lost their children in horrific circumstances, unspeakable tragedy. And, you know, the enemy here is not the people of Gaza. It's not innocent Palestinians. It's Hamas. And there is no question about that. Israel needs to defeat Hamas, and they've had some success in doing so. Hamas runs the Gaza Strip effectively. They have a very complex network of tunnels spanning the territory of Gaza. They run a lot of the administration, and they are a brutal force. They kill innocent Gazans themselves. They're blocking the distribution of aid within Gaza, and they oppress women, they oppress gay people, they oppress minority groups. They are a brutal force, and in fact Gazan civilians are being killed by Hamas themselves. So it's right that Israel takes whatever measures they deem necessary to eliminate and degrade Hamas. They've done so. They've eliminated or degraded about 18 out of 20 or so battalions, but there still remain some battalions in Rafah. Senior Hamas personnel in Rafah, and importantly, the hostages are many. So,
as far as you're concerned, our government should remain resolute that Israel needs to finish the job.
Unquestionably. Israel is one of our closest allies in the region. It's one of the only democratic states in the region. And we support Israel to defend herself in the face of such brutality and threats on her borders. And therefore, you know, we must continue. And I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed by Lord Cameron's recent stance when he says he hasn't seen some of the detailed plans, and therefore the UK government doesn't at this point in time support Israel's operation in Rafah. The reality is, with or without UK support, Israel is going to go into Rafah and do what they need to do. Let's remember, this is against Hamas. This is not about killing innocent Gazans. This is not about killing innocent Palestinians. War is a tragedy. This is a tragedy on all fronts. Unfortunately, innocent civilians are killed in war unintentionally. And that is, really sad when we see children in Gaza being killed, when we see civilians being killed. That is, unfortunately, a tragedy of war.
Some people have described I probably have myself at times, to be honest with you, describe some of those individuals that we see outside those university campuses as Hamas's useful idiots. And how concerned, though, should ordinary members of the public be about sympathy for Hamas amongst, well, especially young people, but certain communities as well in this country, perhaps pockets of the Muslim community in this country? How concerned should people be? You're in the Home Office, you've seen behind the curtain. How big a problem is that sympathy there for Hamas, do you think, in Britain?
I think it's a considerable problem. We've seen the marches take place now on a regular basis in London and all around the country. Hundreds of thousands of people on a regular basis are taking to the streets to celebrate the events of October the 7th. Even before Israel took defensive measures, the marches started back in October. This was not about Israel's defensive measures. This is to celebrate what happened on October the 7th. We've had hundreds of arrests of people glorifying and celebrating Hamas and terrorism. Totally abhorrent in our country. And I'm afraid this is corrosive to our sense of common unity and identity in Britain. It's breaking up our society, and we really need to have a firmer line taken by the authorities. So here in the university context, the failure lies with the leadership. The failure lies with the university authorities, the college authorities, for failing to stop anti-Semitism on campus, stop intimidation and harassment on campus, and to actually take a firm line. For example, a few months ago, we saw a student rip apart one of the portraits of Balfour in Trinity College.
What's happened there? It's gone quiet, hasn't it?
What happened there? Now, that, to my mind, as an observer, that looked like a clear-cut case of criminal damage.
Well, we're looking at it now on the screens if you're watching us on television. I mean, it is. They slashed it with a knife and nothing's happened, as far as we're aware.
As far as I'm aware, nothing has happened, neither by the college authorities or the police. That is, that is sending a message that is tolerated or, even worse, encouraged and supported. Now, that is totally unacceptable by the college authorities. Where is the line? And it seems that every time we're seeing a double standard being applied, so that a blind eye is turned to this kind of behaviour, it's emboldened, it's enabled, and then we get more and more threatening and abusive and, frankly, unacceptable behaviour in campus, but also within our society. OK, and just one more with you before we do have that discussion with somebody who is responsible for organising some of these protests as well. Can I just ask, when you were making these points, presumably, when you were Home Secretary, how much resistance were you met with? What was that like? Because, you must be making points like this. You must have also, we haven't got time to talk about it tonight, but must have been similar points like you were making about illegal immigration, for example. And it did feel a little bit maybe like it was falling on deaf ears. Was it? Well, Patrick, ultimately, I had to leave the government because I wasn't supported on this issue, and I left the government over this issue. I was encouraging a tougher line. I wanted the police to arrest the criminals, not just stand by doing nothing. I wanted stronger political leadership from the Prime Minister to change the laws more urgently. We have an insufficiency of our laws, and, at the end of the day, I wasn't met with the sufficient support, and that's why I had to leave the government.
All right, OK. Well, look, stay where you are. That's all right. And Suella's not going anywhere, because we have found one student,